I'm Alanna Levenson, and I'm here with my co-host, Grace Del Rey.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you.
And welcome to the Up Cup. So, the most expensive hiring mistakes don't happen because owners and founders don't have good instincts. They happen because they're ignoring their own intuition. And at some point in the hiring process, something doesn't add up. And instead of acknowledging, most leaders avoid what might seem like confrontation versus just seeking clarification. So they don't ask the second question or ask for more information when getting an answer. And they do this because it's easier and they just want to move on and get the interviewing done. So this episode is about a specific type of follow through when interviewing and considering how you hire.
Yes, and the good coffee quote of the day. Good coffee has depth. So does great candidates, but only if you actually dig for it.
And I love how you said coffee.
Coffee.
Coffee. Okay, so today, in terms of hiring, we've got a couple of other pitfalls as we've been talking about recently. And the seventh one is ignoring subtle red flags.
Mm-hmm.
And what do we mean by that? So again, you might notice that something's off, but you're rushing and you're not paying enough attention. You might think you are, but here's what can happen in that process. So you might rationalize inconsistencies just to get her done, or give a benefit of the doubt a little too early. Or I see this one a lot. You avoid uncomfortable follow-up questions.
Yeah.
So, Grace, what do you want to say about some of that?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking I really resonate a lot with the second one. Like I am really great at when I'm interviewing candidates to give them the benefit of the doubt because I'm a really nice person. I assume when I meet people, I assume they are telling me the truth. I assume that you're a good person. And I think that in most of my life, people are genuinely good. And I don't think that the candidate is actually coming in to be a bad player in my life or in my company. But people do tend to say whatever they need to say to get the job because they're working from a place of like, I need to pay my rent. That's at the end of the day, that's what they're looking at. So it's easy to go, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Like they missed that question or they were vague on that and it didn't quite balance out. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Like maybe they were rushing to or they got nervous.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
and
they
then
just want to offer a good impression, right? They want to be, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll ask like one of the questions I'll ask, and maybe I need to learn how to rephrase it, is like, is there anything that was challenging in your last job that you felt like it was just something that you were actively trying to overcome or you didn't quite make the mark? What was that? You know? And most times when I get an honest person, like they'll be like, "Oh, I'm not great with people." Like if I don't have to integrate with people because accounting stuff, a lot of times you have the option of not actually like interfacing with the human being if you don't want to a good large degree. But that's good to know because then I'm not going to tell that person, oh, you need to go tell the client that because that would be putting them in a situation where they'd have to interface with somebody. And
Well,
that,
but what that makes me think about is they just gave you a little bit of insight about themselves and that could be a red flag. So then you might ask, well, what about that makes you uncomfortable? Or in what way? Or how has that shown up for you in your past roles? Or give me a situation or a scenario where you did have to interact with a client and what was that like for you?
right? And be able to coach them through that. Like, was there a positive experience? Like, were all your experiences with customers bad?
Right? Like, give me your worst, give me your best.
Yeah, and get to have fun with them. Like I think now I can see like how you can have fun with it and share your own experience so it doesn't feel like a hierarchy
Mhm.
necessarily. I mean, yes, in the world of hiring, there is a hierarchy in hiring, but at a certain time you want your team to actually feel safe enough that they can actually bring you challenges, like, hey, I'm having a challenge with this, instead of hide it and be like, oh, I don't want to share this because this may get me fired. And it's like, well, the company may fail if you don't bring it. Like, there's pieces to this that you need, like, as you're hiring people, that are so important in your growth, because that will change how you can come up with something together to fix it, versus going, oh, don't bring up any kind of challenge. Always be in the yes position. Go, yes, yes. Everything's great. Everything's fine.
Well, and that's tricky too because you do want a team player, but something you and I talked about before we got on this podcast was so when somebody is giving examples of like, oh, we did this together or we improved this together
Mm,
significantly. And it's, but you're not sitting there with the entire team that they had worked with, you're sitting with them. And
right.
so by asking more questions to go deeper on it to find out, well, okay, by how much and what specifically was your contribution? Like what specifically did you do to contribute to that that significant performance improvement?
Right, yeah, because it's easy to hide between, oh, we did it as a group. And truly, yes, as a group environment and working in groups, it is all the people playing in, and your piece could be really small or really large or instrumental in the whole thing, but you can't really take credit for the whole thing. But you can take credit for your section of it. And it is kind of a challenge for somebody to be able to, like, well, I actually did this part of it.
Yeah.
Um, and how that valuable that was.
Yeah. Well, before we move on to the next pitfall, I just to close out this one, unless you have anything else to share too, which is, as far as your intuition is always working. It's not
Mhm.
ever not working. But if you're not trusting it or you're not listening to it, that's where it can have an impact. And just by asking additional questions, it doesn't mean that you are interrogating anybody. It's your responsibility as the founder and business owner who's going to bring this new person into your business. And depending on where you're at with your growth, are you adding them to an existing team to make sure that they're going to add value to what you already have?
Yeah, yeah. No, and it was interesting when you talk about it, made me think about this. I went on a fishing trip with my son recently, and we were talking about, because he's thinking about jumping to a different team. He works on a boat as a crew member, and the
Mhm.
crew, but the crew, every member on the crew is really significant, and can either make the trip amazing and fun, or can sour the whole trip. And it comes down to attitude is everything in those scenarios, because the group is so small and they have to work well together. And if
Yeah,
somebody's in a grumpy, bad mood, it kind of like proliferates all through the whole boat,
yeah,
into even the customers feeling it. And everybody's like, well, this wasn't a fun trip.
yeah. Well, in the team coaching world, just a little tip about that is we see the team as a system,
Yeah.
and whether you just one person can make a difference. So that's exactly what you're pointing to. Number 8,
Yes.
skipping reference checks or just not doing it very well. So doing it poorly. And I think this happens because, and I see this too, a lot of founders, business owners, or leaders look at this as, just making sure they check a box and it's just part of the process and it's a formality versus no, this is an actual decision tool, an important one.
Yeah, yeah. I have to do it all the time in my company. And when I've failed to do it in the past, it's come back to bite me in the ass hard, really hard.
Yeah.
And I also found out, as you are as an owner, if you didn't go to some Ivy League school to get your master's degree in business, you're learning it on the fly. And so what I learned over it being in California, like HR wise, that you couldn't ask why to the reference. Like, that was illegally, you're not allowed to like ask some of those more in-depth questions. But you were allowed to ask yes and no. It was framed as, if you could ask them a yes and no question. So one of the ones that I would ask is like, would you hire this candidate again? If you had the opportunity, like if everything was right and in your business you had room for them again, would you be willing to hire them again? Yes or no? And then if they elaborated on why they would or why they wouldn't, that was great. But if they didn't, at least if they said no, then you knew that something definitely wasn't right.
Well, at that point, you don't need to ask anything else. That just
Right.
gave you an answer right there. That,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that was the answer of like, oh, this something bad went down and that's why this person's not working there and they didn't share that.
Yeah. Well, and what this is making me think about too is I'm wondering if one of the reasons why some in the the hiring manager or leader doesn't probe further is because from a legality standpoint, they're actually afraid of asking a question that could get them in trouble. They're not really sure what the parameters are of like what's okay, what's not okay. So what they do is they end up just kind of accepting surface level praise that the candidate is offering, or a reference is saying, oh, it's surface level praise. And even though you might have a like something like there's more to this story, and neither of you can say it or ask it. So I guess it sounds like it's kind of a dance, actually.
It's a dance, and it's definitely part of the sleuth dance of like figuring out if this is going to be the best fit for you. And that's kind of why you and I went into this, is not to like go, oh, this is hard and truth, like these are the questions you have to ask, because everybody's business is different. But the analytical skills that you need is what you and I both really stand behind in terms of what we teach, in terms of like how are you, what questions do you need to ask to help illuminate for you why this candidate is a really great hire and you can be very excited about it, or why this person you need to go in the other direction, so that you're making the best decision for your company and your team.
Right. So what's interesting about this, that I also want to note here too, is even though we're talking about the pitfall in relation to reference checking, let's go back to the interview with the candidate. This is where you can ask questions like, what was challenging about your last role? And
Yeah.
as well as, and then go deeper on that depending on their answer. What kind of environment do you thrive in? You can also ask, if they're currently employed, why are you thinking about leaving? Or if they're not, tell me a little bit more about what made you want to transition out of your last role. And again, you want to be careful about asking why questions. Don't start, as much as possible, try not to ask a question that starts with the word why,
Hmm.
because that can feel interrogating for the person on the receiving end.
Yeah. Yeah, because you don't want to like take the person that you think is going to be a great hire and like scare them away in the interview process.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't want to be like this doormat that just kind of be like, oh, okay, that all sounds great. Goodbye.
Yeah. So, last point on this one, and then we'll move on to the last one, which is, as far as checking references, we totally get that it can be uncomfortable. Both of us have had to conduct interviews, but it's really about discovery. And, you're either going to validate or challenge a narrative that the candidate is giving you, either from them directly or from the reference check, and try not to stay on that surface level. So.
Right. Yes. Come deeper. Come deeper.
Let's go deeper. Okay, so last one, over-indexing on culture fit.
Mm.
So culture fit, and that's a term both of us hear a lot. That's kind of a vague catch-all that hides
Yeah, and
biases.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I think culture, the work culture environment, that word popped in the last 10 years. Like we didn't really think about culture. When I started the company that I started back in 1994, I hadn't even heard of culture. All I knew was like, I need to make money
Well, in the
and I need
corporate world, it was being talked about before that, but right, so it's like there's what happens in corporate, bigger, much larger organizations, and then there's what starts to happen in smaller business owners, entrepreneurs, and founders. And it's valuable to learn about that. They were talking about it ahead of time, but culture, it is the environment. It's what makes people feel comfortable, and a safe space where people what's interesting about it is it's like creating the environment where you can challenge thinking.
hmm Yeah. And you can also like inspire each other or inspire your staff on how to support the company moving upward and growing. And what does that look like so that you, as the leader, you are leading, but you're also inviting others to get inspired and lead themselves and
Yeah.
lead the group. And you grow from that leadership versus the old style of leadership is I tell you what to do and you just jump as high
Yeah.
as you can.
Yeah.
And you don't complain about how heavy or how heavy the lift is. You
Well, and
just jump.
yeah, and it's about, I think people are afraid of rocking the boat, like creating an environment. It's like, I sometimes hear, well, I just want everybody to get along. Well, what does that really mean? Because if you go deeper, it's not just about people getting along. It's about how the work gets done, how you address problems and challenges, as well as inspire innovative thinking. And in order to do any of those things, you need to have an environment where people feel comfortable to challenge each other. And so coming back to this culture fit, it's not about like versus like, it's actually a complementary thing. So it's defining complementary behaviors. So if you hear yourself say out loud or even think in your own head, I'm not really sure if they'd fit in our culture. What do you mean by that?
Right. Because it's easy to like hire a bunch of people that are just yes people and then nothing gets done because nobody understands what needs to happen or because they were too afraid to actually go, I don't understand what you're asking.
Exactly. And you've probably seen this too, Grace, and please validate that. But I've noticed that when the culture or the environment is one where even though there's discomfort, that actually leads to growth.
Yeah, it does. And I think that in some of the best situations, it may feel uncomfortable because you're not agreeing, right?
Mhm.
And you're having a discourse, but through the discourse, you actually have the person that's needing to grow grows, and the other person gets clarity on maybe the way that they're talking isn't necessarily landing the way they thought it was, and that they needed to be clear on their messaging or how people are hearing them so that they could go, oh, they didn't understand that they were supposed to do that and that was their responsibility. And they needed to ask more questions on how so they can get their job done. And it is a give and take scenario because like if at the same time if it's adversarial, people are going to be watching their backs and nobody's going to want to share because if they
Yeah.
share something, they'll get
Love that.
attacked. And
Yeah.
then on the other side, if you got everybody going, yes, 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 you're doing great, yay, then you're not growing because everything's just kind of going in a circle and nobody is like actually going, okay, well, this didn't actually get done.
Yeah. And that's, to sum this all up, a lot of leaders and business owners lean into the comfort over the capability, and discomfort often gets mislabeled as misalignment, and it's not.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, any last words to wrap up all of this from these pitfalls from today?
I would say, like, as a business owner leader, when you come across somebody that asks a lot of questions, and sometimes you might get frustrated because you're kind of like, I need to move on, just do it. Those questions are actually really a gift because it gives you a moment to pause and go, if you don't know yourself, you may take 2 seconds and you'll find the answer yourself, or you'll be able to sense and see, like, well, where is this questioning coming from? Why don't they feel safe enough to make the decision? It gives you that pause moment to not only better your company, but better your relationship with the person that's asking the question because they're actually doing you a favor by giving you questions that you
Yes.
might not have been seeing because as the owner or the leader of a certain department, you're juggling a lot. So you
Hmm.
might be looking at like 50 things. They're only looking at one or two or maybe five things. And so when they bring something up to you, it gives you pause of like, oh, something in this environment's not working right. Let me like poke my head in, and then you can easily adjust it versus if you go, oh, I'll fix that later, I'll look at that later, and then year goes by and now you've got this huge mess and just a huge mess that you're gonna have to clean up, and you're like, damn it, if
Yeah.
I
Well,
just tuned in sooner.
yeah. Well, and what I'm hearing in that too is the reason that that person in particular, it could be a great value add to your organization is because they have critical thinking. using discernment and foresight into looking at more things in the environment, sometimes more than other people can. And that's again why it's important to not just look for fit, but to look for complement. Because although that person might, communicate differently or think differently or look at things that everybody else is not seeing, that's the value and the contribution that they can add.
Beautiful, beautiful.
All
Love it.
right. Well, thanks everybody for listening in on another episode of my Up Cup. And we've got one more that we're going to do on hiring pitfalls. So be sure to subscribe, like, comment. We'd love to hear comments about this and how this resonates with you. And we look forward to seeing you next time.